Yeah, 1 second here. All right, so welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, want to welcome everyone. This Q&A question came in earlier that whatever the question comes up, it's good to deal with it in different ways. Common question, and the question was why is Judaism so hard? All right, the context of the question was in regard to conversion. Why do we make it so hard? So there are a lot of things Jews have to do. We mentioned many times, it's not a 5-year option to renew. I feel like doing it. I don't feel like doing it. God spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu passed the Torah down to us. So we have obligations. We don't see anywhere in the Torah that I'm allowed to pick and choose. Right? We don't see anywhere that says, well, I can do what I want. Or, this is outdated. Like many in the conservative movement will say, you have to go with the times. Times change. I don't know, the Torah changed? Someone will say, come on, electricity on Shabbos. Rabbis didn't have electricity on Shabbos. They didn't have electricity. The question is that called fire? Is electricity called fire? So rabbis of the last generation had to deal with it because it wasn't dealt with before. It was a new phenomenon. Oh, the change in the Torah. No. What are they doing? They're trying to clarify. Does this fit into the criteria? Right? Is it really like fire or not? What about a microwave? What about a gas stove? What about electric? Right? So, I love when people say, well, if I turn on a switch, I'm not doing anything. Right? It's not work. Well, what's the definition of work? On Shabbos or festival. So I'll tell people, okay, I got a great idea. Since you're not doing anything, it's not really significant. So take off the plastic cover of your electric socket, take a screwdriver and put it in. Oh, I would never do that. Why not? I'll get zapped. Get electrocuted. Not stupid. Why would I do that? Oh, but you're not doing anything. There's nothing going on. The question is, what category does it come under? Does it come under the category building? Is it really fire? Which a lot of rabbinical authorities hold it's not fire, but it comes under a different category. So that's analyzing what the Torah says. That's saying, okay, the rabbis, they didn't have fire. They didn't have this phenomenon. So what is it? Is it fire? It's not fire. And then people will say, well, why do I have to live amongst Jews? Why do I have to move within walking distance of a synagogue? No one said that. Torah doesn't say it. Rabbis don't say it. Later commentaries don't say it. So the Rambam was remembering the laws of repentance. The Rambam says there are 24 things that stop a person from repentance. 24 things. One of them is if a person is parish min hatzibur, separates himself from the community. So I'd ask, how can a person live on their own island and still want to be a practicing Jew? Can't do it. right? Be forbidden. Someone coming into the fold, we tell them this is what you have to do. It's all or nothing. What about a secular Jew? He also has to keep everything. Oh, he chooses to break the covenant. That's his choice. Making a bad choice. Seriously bad choice. But that's his choice. Doesn't mean there aren't repercussions for their actions. Right? They're going to pay the price. But someone coming in, they don't make conditions. Let's make that clear. You don't make conditions. Now, I would agree. You want to be a Christian, very easy to be a Christian. Be a Muslim, probably not that hard either. They have their laws, whatever you have to do. You're right, it might not be as complex. Okay, you want fantasy, go do that. You want to be the real deal? There's stuff you have to do. There are obligations. It might be hard. And for some people, they might not be able to do it, okay? Person can't move. Spouse doesn't want to convert. Whatever the case is. A lot of things can happen. At the end of the day, God says, "Shop and eat the matzah." That's what he says. You don't like it, my Rebbe would say, "Go eat kugel." You don't have to be part of it. You don't have to convert. Right? God wanted everyone to be Jewish. They would be. Oh, but it's so important. It's so there. But if you can't move, or whatever the case is, and you can't convert. Not everyone is meant to be Jewish. I understand a person really feels it, and it's very important to them, and all that. It's true. And we're not denying that. But there's certain criteria. You meet the criteria, very good. You don't meet the criteria, what are we supposed to do? I know someone who said it was so hard, and people made it so hard. So I said, I'll be a Reformed Jew. I'll be a conservative Jew. I want to have that status. So I asked them a number of different times. I asked them a very simple question. What should we take out of Judaism? What should we take out? Family purity laws? Yeah, we'll take that out. Kashrus? Take that out. What do we take out? What things are not fundamental that make someone a Jew? Right? Someone asked just a side point, this whole thing. A non-Jew, right? A Noahide. Can they say Shema Yisrael? Why not? Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. So why can't they? Why shouldn't they be allowed to say that? They're declaring God is one. Not a problem. Do they have an obligation to say the rest of the Shema? No. That really doesn't apply. The first line they can say. Do they have to say about reward and punishment? No. What about tzitzit? No. Doesn't apply to them. But Shema Yisrael, they're allowed to say. Makes sense they should be allowed to say. Why? Again, they're declaring God's oneness. God's uniqueness in the world. That's what they're declaring. Not a problem. They can say it every day. Definitely not a problem. The non-Jew shouts Shabbat toward a Jew who breaks it. Let's ask a different question. Can a Jew do that? First of all, the Torah says, this week's parsha, Torah says, there's an obligation for a Jew to rebuke who? Amisecha, your people. So a Jew's got an obligation to rebuke. Now you have to know how to rebuke, you have to know when to rebuke, when it applies, when it doesn't apply. And even if people are going to say, well, people don't listen today, you're going to turn them further off. If they're not going to listen, I don't have an obligation. Not true. It's complicated. Let's just say it's complicated. But we should scream inside. We see a Jew desecrate Shabbos, it should disgust us. I don't care what they know, what they don't know, and why they're doing it. They grew up as a potato farmer in Idaho. No offense, anyone's a potato farmer grew up in Idaho. They don't know anything. So what? Does that mean I sit back and say, oh, that's okay? You're good. You know, a Jew desecrates Shabbos in public has the status of a non-Jew. Can't drink his wine. Right? If he touches wine, that is not pasteurized, not cooked. A Jew can't drink it. Right? For that, it's got the status for a non-Jew. For other things, it's got the status for a non-Jew. Pretty darn severe. So a Jew should rebuke him, no question. Non-Jew has an obligation to rebuke. Shabbos doesn't apply to them. Why would Shabbos apply to a non-Jew? Doesn't. Absolutely doesn't. So now if there's an obligation for a Jew to rebuke, that I hear. A non-Jew, why does a non-Jew have to rebuke? Can they rebuke? I mean, it doesn't apply to them. The one who's going to rebuke or should rebuke is a Jew. But again, you have to know how to rebuke also. There are people that, will stand in protest and scream Shabbos. That doesn't do anything. That's not rebuke. Not only that, it's going to turn them more off. But again, there are times you have an obligation to say something. But when the Torah says, let's make clear, when the Torah says, rebuke your fellow Jew, it doesn't apply to an non-Jew. Not only that, but I've heard a number of times, ad nauseum. Someone said you got an obligation to rebuke the Christians. You got an obligation to rebuke the Muslims because they're not doing the right thing. Well, more of the Christians, let's say, because it's idolatry, right? According to most rabbinical authorities. Right? So we have an obligation, this person claims. We have to be out there yelling and screaming at the Christians that they should be Noahides. Who says that's my obligation? You tell me the Jews are a light into nations. Okay. I don't disagree. Where do you see from that I have an obligation to rebuke other non-Jews? Just the opposite. What's the Torah tell me? Torah tells me this week's parsha. I have an obligation to rebuke my own people. I should go out and be rebuking Christians. Who says? And when do you learn it out from the fact that we're the chosen people? Makesha. What's the connection? There's no connection. Should be plastering signs about being a Noahide in front of all, in all churches or nearby. That's my job. Who says? Who says I have to reach out even better? Who says I have to reach out to non-Jews, keep their mitzvahs? We've spoken about this a number of times. No obligation. They come to me, different issue. But I have to go there and find non-Jews, keep the Noahide laws. Someone will say, isn't that a big thing by Chabad? That's their thing. Not everyone agrees. A lot of rabbinical authorities disagree. So who says I have an obligation to do that? But when it says to rebuke, it means me, a Jew, have to rebuke my own people, even if they won't listen. But again, you have to know when, what circumstances. Right? And I'm not going to say it's so cut and dry. There are a lot of different variables over here. But a non-Jew, screaming at a Jew, what's that? First of all, what's that going to do? Is a Jew's going to listen to a non-Jew? I don't know. Can't imagine. Right? Might be better for a non-Jew to rebuke in a certain sense. See, Jews they don't want to listen to. Maybe they'll listen to a non-Jew. Maybe. But non-Jew, that's not part of the Noahide laws. Rebuke's not one of them. Right? You have to remember the Noahide laws, what they have to keep makes sense logically according to the Torah. Who says that makes sense logically? You say, well, someone's doing something wrong, they should be rebuked. They don't think they're doing anything wrong. They'll give you 10 reasons why it's okay. You're right, they're misguided, they don't know anything. I agree 100%. You're probably not going to convince them. You probably make them more antagonistic towards Judaism. We don't really care either way. We care what's right. We do have to be sensitive. That is true. Definitely have to be sensitive. Give an example. A Jew as a secular Jew come, fix their plumbing. And the secular Jew says, can I have a drink of water? You have to give him a drink of water. What's the problem? Problem is, you give him a drink of water, it's not going to make a blessing. Now you can say, listen, I'll give you a drink of water, put on a yarmulke, put on a kippah, make a blessing. Now, some may say, okay, they don't have a problem with that. Others may get offended. They may get seriously offended. And they may say, what? You're not going to give me a drink when I make a blessing? They're going to say you're backwards, you're square. They're not going to, they at that point, they for sure don't want to have anything to do with Judaism. Right? It comes along with Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, a blessed memory. Shlomo Zalman said you're allowed to give him a drink, even if he's not going to make a blessing. But doesn't the Torah say, with the Aver, lo titein mikshol? Not allowed to put a stumbling block in front of someone. Right? Someone makes a Nazirite vow, which you can't do today anyway. Even if you wanted to, because we don't have a temple, you can't bring a sacrifice. Right? A Nazirite vow means you're not going to eat grapes, you're not going to drink wine, grape juice. You're not going to go to a cemetery. I'm sure that's going to be a big thing by most people. Great, make a vow. Can't go to a cemetery. Okay. You're not allowed to put a bottle of wine in front of them or a bottle of grape juice. Why? Because you're putting a stumbling block in front of them. Now you're not allowed to do. Right? So over here, does that apply? Right? So Shlomo Zalman says, because of fear and more hatred that they'll have, you're allowed to. You're allowed to give them a drink. But there is one caveat. Right? The caveat is you don't put it in their hand. You put it in front of them, let them take it. And if they take it, they don't make a blessing, it's not your problem. But the question is why? You're putting the stumbling block in front of them. So it could be, you should tell them, fine, here's the drink, I want you to make a blessing. Now, if they say no, you have to give them the option, maybe. He's not saying you have to give the option. He's saying, or you don't have to give an option. You can just put it, you just put it down in front of it. Or it's better not to give it to them direct. Definitely better. But if you did, okay. Not the end of the world. There are worse things. But why is that not putting a stumbling block in front of someone? That's what it is. 100% that's what it is. But why did I bring this up? Because it's sensitivity. Today is Holocaust Memorial Day. Right? So here in Israel, 10 o'clock, they have a siren. So what do people do? Everyone stops. If you're outside, everybody stops. Cars stop. They get out of their car. They stand. And they stand like a moment of silence. Like non-Jews do. Like a bunch of idiots. They sit there and go, They sit there with their head bowed. What does that do? You want to do something, learn Tehillim. Say Tehillim. Say Psalms for them. Learn something in their memory. They're going to sit there like adults with your head bowed down. Isn't that what non-Jews do? Listen, I went to public school. They had a moment of silence. Non-Jewish thing. We don't do it. So how do you commemorate the Holocaust? That's what Tisha B'Av is. The 9th of all is a commemoration of all the tragedies happened to Jewish people. You want to commemorate it then? Not a problem. Not a problem at all. You want to be like a non-Jew, commemorate it that way? Yeah, that's the problem. Right? But what if a person's out? They're out, whatever they're doing, siren goes off. You don't believe in this. You say siren's a stupid thing, this, that, okay. But you're in public. If a person's in public, you stop. A person driving, you stop, you get out of your car. Why? That'd be a desecration of God's name. Why? Because then people are going to look at you and say, what? You're so insensitive? 6 million people died. You don't care. You don't show respect. Now, you can say 100%, that's how I show respect. You want to argue with them about the Holocaust? Forget it. Never win the argument. Never. You don't even start. If a person's outside and the siren goes off, you stop. That's what you should do. You don't want to start anything here. They're misguided. It's a non-Jewish thing. You may give 100 different reasons why it's wrong. You're right. You gotta say, what do I care what they think? So you gotta be sensitive. Not saying every little thing. This is, I would say, an exception. There could be a number of exceptions. This is one of them. You don't want to give them any fodder to hate Judaism anymore. And again, this is something very, very sensitive. Also before Independence Day here, they also have a siren for fallen soldiers. Same thing. Person's outside, that siren goes off, you stop. I don't care what you believe in. You stop. You're never going to win that argument amongst secular Jews. Never. And that hatred will be so much greater. Oh, look, these ultra-Orthodox Jews, they don't even serve in the army. Look at how many, Israeli soldiers died over the years. So insensitive. All right. There's an issue about the army. Fundamental issue. Secular Israelis is like one of the issues. Why they hate ultra-Orthodox Jews. One issue. There are many issues. That's one of them. You're never going to win that argument either. You'll never win that argument. But it's about sensitivity. You're going to say, my kid, could potentially die or whatever. And you don't show respect. And yeah, there are people that start up with soldiers, throw stuff at that. It's wrong. They're protecting. It's just idiocy. So why do people do it? I can't answer stupid. That's not something I'm capable of doing. But if they're protecting your life and they're risking their life, you got to show respect. Should show respect. Don't spit on them, say things. It's crazy. So you say, where are these people? It's Das Torah. Where's their rabbinical authority? Who says they have rabbinical authority? Rabbis got to tell them that's what you should do. If they would, they're stupid also. It's common sense. They're protecting you. You're going to spit on them. You're going to make fun of them. You're going to say things. You're going to start up with them. We bring out sometimes. I'm not going to say all the time. We bring out sometimes the idea that we bring it upon ourselves. We bring extra hatred upon ourselves. Because we think we're right. And we are right, but, I don't have to rub it in someone's face. I don't have to make them feel bad. Right? You got to have some level of compassion. There are some things, doesn't matter what they say. We're still going to do what we're going to do. But you have to show a certain level of sensitivity. And if you don't show sensitivity, right, what do we say? Derech Eretz Koydel v'Torah. Proper character traits come before Torah. What does that mean? Even more important than Torah. How can a person learn and be disgusted in God's eyes? How can someone have all this knowledge and act like, and be a crook in other things? And have bad character traits. I would think, in general, that there are things that are obvious. There are things that, make sense that people should do. Right? One of my personal pet peeves, most people know, hygiene. Hygiene, I think, is an obvious thing. You're going to cough, cover your mouth. You go outside, look presentable. Not saying you got to prim and proper yourself, this and that. Don't look like a slob. And if a person's a rabbinic scholar and they walk out with a stain on their shirt, chai misa, liable for death penalty. Death penalty. Right, a little bit harsh. You represent Torah, you got to be impeccable. You want to be part of the Jewish people, you got to be the best you can be. We're held to a higher standard. 100% true. Do we always do what we're supposed to do? No. Are there sometimes we make mistakes? Yeah. We're human. But mistakes are costly. Because sometimes you don't get a second chance. Right? Meaning, person's out there, and let's say in this case, we mentioned about the siren. And the person's out there and doing whatever they're doing during the siren, other people are stopped. No matter how much you explain yourself, you lost. You lost. And not one thing you're going to say is going to make you come out smelling like a rose. Nothing. Not one last thing. So you got to be sensitive. You know, a lot of times it's better to be sensitive than to be right. Even if you're right, you don't rub it in someone's face. That you don't. That's already too much. Now again, they can think certain things no matter what you do is wrong. Okay. So we got to do the best we can do. You can't help the fact someone's going to, hate Judaism more because you're wearing the yarmulke, a guy is wearing the yarmulke, sitters, and he's wearing a suit. You can't do anything about that. They have their own biases. That's not my problem. Not going to change the way I dress. Right? Other things I'm not going to worry about. But things that you could be sensitive about, you got to be sensitive. You can't just think about being right, even if we are right. You got to have, again, I would put this under the category of common sense. Not everyone has common sense. I hate to say that, but a lot of people don't have common sense. They think this is permissible, that's permissible, when it's not. And it's somewhat depressing when you think about it. Because all the person has to do, one person, do something, doesn't have to be so egregious. They do something in public, what happens? It allows someone to say, oh, look what Orthodox Jews do. It's one definition of what a desecration of God's name is. Desecration of God's name is a specific definition. But one of the things Rashi says is the fact that they're going to learn from your bad action. They're going to learn from your bad action. Now, again, we're talking about where someone does something wrong. Not how other people perceive. We don't care what other people perceive. Question is, what are you doing? And if they're going to say, wow, if he can do it, so I can do it, they're going to learn from your bad action. That's a desecration of God's name. Not according to strict definition, but that's a definition. Or one aspect. That's one aspect over here. Now, that being said, we're only going to be careful. You do not want to add, you don't want to add to the fire here. And once the damage is done, imagine the Holy New York Times, is guilty of libel. They have to make an apology. When they make an apology, the apology is never on the first page. Probably not on page 10. Probably it's on page 257. You need bifocals in order to see it. Now, did they make an apology? Yeah, they did. Let's say. Is the damage done? Oh, yeah. Damage is done. How do you fix that? Can't fix it. Once the damage is done, no matter how much money a person gets based on whatever, damage is done. They've been ruined. Same thing over here. You do something, and a secular Jew just goes off. And they say, can't believe a person did it. This is what Orthodox Jews do, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be very hard to bring that person back. Because the damage is done. Damage is done. So, you can apologize, you can this, you can that. How are they going to look, at Orthodox Jews? Again, I'm saying where you did something wrong. Because you didn't do anything wrong, it's not my problem how they view me. I can do the best of my ability and make a sanctification of God's name. True. But, once the damage has been done, it's very hard to fix. Very, very hard to fix. So we got to be very careful. It's a huge responsibility. Huge responsibility. And we can make very simple mistakes. We're not necessarily doing it on purpose, but we got to be careful. We are the ambassadors, of God over here. Secular Jews do, I'm not interested. Doesn't matter what they do. A lot of things they do forbidden, I get it. What do they know? What do they really know? They don't know anything. They'll pay the price. I'm not worried about that. But see, the rest of the world, in general, not looking at them and what they do. They'll be held responsible. But they're looking at us. Because we're put on the pedestal. And the fact that we're put on the pedestal, we got to be careful. Absolutely, we have to be careful. Because if not, you don't want to add on to that fight. You don't. Because that's going to be a lot worse. That many times you can't fix it. There's just no way to fix it. I'll tell you a personal story, at least part of it. I made a comment to somebody many, many years ago. Many years ago. And my comment was, I feel like X. I didn't say I was X. I said, I feel like X. What did they hear? You are X, meaning me. I said, that's not what I said. They said, but you said, but that's not what I said. The statement shouldn't have been made. Let's make clear. Statement shouldn't have been made, whatever it was. Should have been made. But any time that'll come out, and it comes out, once in a blue moon, if that, it doesn't matter what I say. I can say the same thing. That's not what I said. This is what I meant. But they heard what they wanted to hear. So that damage was done. You're going to say, wow, they got selective hearing. Okay. But maybe the statement shouldn't have been said in the first place. You don't want to give anyone, any ability to misconstrue anything. Right? They always say, someone's going to put something in social media, whatever, make sure it's crystal clear. Make sure no one can twist it like a pretzel. You're going to say, isn't that impossible? Yeah, it's hard. People can misconstrue all kinds of things. So you're going to say, do I have to worry about that? You got to be careful. And the reason is, you make a statement, someone else comes out, this, that, and it's the whole thing. It's all Lashon Hara. The person got to be careful. So whatever a person's going to say, you want to make sure it's squeaky clean. And no one can misconstrue. Now, what if you made a statement, someone misconstrued it? You're going to say, it's not what I said. You can clarify it, whatever. But you got to be careful. All right, point is, you got to be careful here. So am I going to say, never put anything on social media? I wouldn't necessarily say that. Right? A lot of people put all kinds of things and whatever, craziness, and and they're there to fight everybody. Come out against it. I'm going to fight. I'm going to defend God. I told them there's a big rabble around it. Goes around shooting off his mouth, different things. Calling people out and this and that. I told them. I said, who says that's your job? Why don't you sit and learn? That's your job. Who says your job is to defend God? I feel that's my job. And I won't be put down, and I'm not going to stop. Okay? It's like talking to a brick. I said, who says that it's your job? You think God needs you to defend him? So you have to know when to say something, when not to say something. I get it. People are all fired up. They now see the truth. So what do? Someone comes out, says something, you blast them. They say, well, if they're heretic, don't I have a right? Right? If they are heretic, I can say what I want. True. Doesn't go against Torah. The question is, should I be doing it on a regular basis? You can say, what do you want social media any for? Yeah, it's a good question. Social media is poison. Poison. Person spoke Lashon Hara against someone on social media. How are you going to do tshuva for that? Millions and billions of people are going to see it over time. It's 36 prohibitions in one shot, multiplied by infinity. How are you going to do tshuva for that? I see people put up before Yom Kippur, I'm sorry, I offended anybody, blah, blah, blah. How's that going to help? How's that going to help? Social media is poison. Total poison. Could there be good things come out of it? Maybe here and there. But it's poison, essentially. So a person got to be careful. We're held to a different standard, and we should be. We should be. Right? I put out a video yesterday, on the Parsha where we're a week ahead here in Israel for the next 15 weeks, because outside of Israel, it was the second day of the festival, so they didn't read Parshas Acharemos like we did. So whatever, they're going to catch up eventually. About 15 weeks. So I said, at the end of the Parsha, God distinguishes, he says, I distinguish between you and all the nations. Why? Because I'm God, and I'm holy, and I want you to be holy. So why God take us out of Egypt? What's the purpose of taking us out? The purpose of taking it out is to do what he says, to serve the King of Kings. Right? That's the short answer. Because we had to be in Egypt, according to some, because we have to know what it means to serve a king in this world in order to know how to serve the King of Kings. So God took us out of Egypt, and everyone agrees. Muslims, Christians, they agree. Took us out of Egypt. God says to to us, 3 million people, right? I'm the Lord your God. All this, gave us 10 commandments. Nobody disagrees. Nobody disagrees. Now, that being the case, kind of ironic, you have 14 million Jews, 14.5 million Jews left or more. And most of them are secular, right? So the question I asked is, so why God take us out for? He took us out to be a nation. When a person gets called to the Torah, a guy gets called to the Torah, what's the blessing you make? The first blessing over the Torah, you make the blessing, God, the source of all blessing, King of the universe, who chose us from among the nations. God, the source of all blessing, gave us the Torah. That's the blessing we make. Separated us from all the nations. That's what he did. Torah mitzvahs, what's it about? Separation. And the rabbis went to town to make sure we're different. As the Torah tells us. We don't eat the same foods as Haman said. Tachashverosh. In the book of Esther. They don't keep your laws. You touch their wine, they won't drink it. We have laws, we're different. But see, a lot of Jews out there think if I'm more the same as everybody else, right, then all Jews will come to love us. Well, didn't Hitler, Yamach Shemo, Vizikro say not that way? He didn't care. Religious, secular. If you had Jewish blood, he killed you. That was his goal. So secular Jews going nuts. Take them. Take the other Orthodox Jews. They're different. They don't keep your laws, right? Secular anti-Semites got plenty of Jewish anti-Semites. So what do they say? Oh, you're different. Why don't you be like everyone else? Moshe Mendel said, be a Jew in your house. Outside, be like everyone else. Go to the sporting events, go to the universities, marry their women, you fight in the awards. Beautiful. Yeah, Hitler said, I don't care. You want to be like us? Forget it. We're not interested. We're going to kill you anyway. The secular Jews think, nah, we're going to be we're going to be close to them. We're going to be like them. That's going to get rid of anti-Semitism. Yeah, they forgot one thing. They forgot one thing. Esav hate Yaakov. Anti-Semitism will be forever. Never going to change. Never going to change till the Messiah comes. But, like someone once told me, and, I was in a certain place and probably shouldn't have been there. They said, it's embarrassing being seen with you in public. Very nice to hear. Just like an Orthodox Jew, I guess it's embarrassing because you're a secular Jew. Okay. But, what's the mentality? Why can't you be like everyone else? Why can't you be like everyone else? Why do you have to be openly Jewish? Why shouldn't I be? Why in the world shouldn't I be? Someone there points out, the worst enemy the Jewish nations have is themselves. Yeah. For secularism, gay marriages, all kinds of craziness. True. We are our own worst enemy in many ways. But you see, the old adage is, if the Jew doesn't make Kiddush on Shabbos, the non-Jews make Havdalah. What does Havdalah mean? To distinguish. We distinguish between Shabbos and the everyday. That means they're going to let you know you're Jewish, even if you want to run away from it. That thing said to me in public school, right? Like, 3 Jews out of 1,000, in high school I went to. And there were kids much brighter than me, comments here, comments there. I wasn't looking like an Orthodox Jew. People still made comments here and there. Certainly felt it. No question. So that's God tapping on your shoulder. That's God saying, hey, they're telling you. They're telling you, so what do you want from me? I'm not rubbing it in anyone's face. I'm not looking like an Orthodox Jew. Then you can say, oh, look at him, dressed up, this, that. I remember he used to do this. Yeah, Torah prohibition of onus davar. Right? A Jew not allowed to say another Jew. I remember you used to eat shrimp. Torah prohibition. Can you remind the convert? I remember you weren't Jewish. Torah prohibition. It's insensitivity. It's putting people down. But yeah, you look at Jews that had the most impact in the 20th century. Right? Who do you got? Freud? Einstein? Trotsky? Right? Communism, all that. 3 unbelievable heretics. Heretics. Look what they did for the world. Look what they did for the world. It's pretty unbelievable. You think about it. You're right. I'm not disagreeing. We can be our own worst enemy. For sure. And the verses I quoted, at the end of Parshas Kedoshim, right before that, it says, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, God says, I'll spit you, I'll vomit you out of the land. Coffman's law, chump don't want it, chump don't get it. God says Jews should be in the land of Israel. What happened? Got thrown out twice. The fact that we're still here in the land is a miracle. No question. But God says, don't go like the other nations. Don't do what they do, because if you do, I will spit you out. That's the end result. So is it any wonder, what we've done over the millennium? Spit in God's face in different ways. Payback. The serious payback. So yeah, there is anti-Semitism, been a lot of pogroms, all kinds of things, Holocaust. We brought upon ourselves. We don't have anyone to blame except ourselves. Right? But it's people who know better. And if you know better, you're messing around, that's worse. So there are different reasons now, today's Holocaust Memorial Day. So some people want to give different reasons, potentially, why the Holocaust happened. Now, we don't know why. Nobody knows why. Some want to say, look, there was 80% intermarriage in Germany at the time. Nobody protests against secular Jews desecrating Shabbos. Is that the reason? No. Is it a possible reason? Maybe. Right? In the end, the whole discussion was, why it happened. This one gave this reason, another gave another reason. Rabbi Chaim Coffman, of blessed memory, he was head of the Beis Din in London. He slams his hand on the table and says, you don't make condition with God over here. You don't figure out God did this, God did that. We don't understand why. It was a decree. That's it. I know more than that. You want to try and figure it out? Forget it. It's game over. We can try and say maybe it's this, maybe that. Doesn't matter. We don't know why. And we're not conjecturing over here. We're not. It was a horrible decree. Millions died. Totally cruel the way they died. Innocent people murdered, massacred, killed, gassed. horrific. It's a horrible decree. We want to say we know why. Totally different. Right? Again, we could think maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's the other thing. We don't know why. It doesn't matter why. Right? Coffman's law, shut up and eat the matzah. Okay, you don't like matzah, then what are you going to do? These are the mitzvahs. No one asks, can a Noahide read a Siddur? No. They have there is a Noahide Siddur, but a Jewish prayer book, no. Because a lot of things don't apply to them. Someone asked, Breslov is part of Spartan Judaism. No, they're more Hasidic. I would say they're Hasidic in a different way. They're more it's a good question, actually. They're more Sephardic. I don't know if I call them Sephardic. I don't know exactly what to call them. Maybe they're more Sephardic than Hasidic. Could be. Could be. Well, listen, their nusach in prayer is not Ashkenaz. It's definitely Sephardic. Right? It's definitely Sephardic. So, yeah, they are definitely more Sephardic than Ashkenazic. I don't think there's any question. Right? I don't think there's any question about that. So, yeah, I guess I would say, they're more, are they really Sephardic? No. I wouldn't say they're Sephardic. Are they closer to Sephardic? Yeah, it could be. Could be. Someone asks, how do Jews go to work, keep the commandments without burning out? That's a good question. I mean, they're all good questions. Is it Hashem's miracle? So, I spoke a few weeks back. Just watched my video on I think it was on the book of Leviticus. Now, I spoke about Jews doing things by rote. Doing things by rote is akin to spiritual death. 100% it's akin to spiritual death. And it's very hard to get excited, sing and dance every day. I guess more of my Hasidic side here coming out. In the sense that we get beaten down in life. Mentioned this many times. When a person gets beaten down in life, it's harder to, you still have to serve God. You still have to pray. A lot of things you still have to do, but it's harder. If everything's going easier, I would say it's a little bit different. You don't pray the same as if your life depended on it, for sure, right? But to a person can see it's monotonous in a certain way. Get up, I wash my hands, I go to the bathroom, I say the prayer, coming out of the bathroom, I get dressed, I go to pray, I go to learn, I go to work, different things. I have my learning schedule, my work schedule, wife, kids, this, that, can get monotonous. Definitely can get monotonous. Right? In other words, you lose track of what you're doing. You're not in touch, so to speak. You're going through the motions. Now, before a person goes to sleep, they should take into account of what they've done, how much they learned, how they talked during the day, what did they accomplish, what did they accomplish. Then you know where you really hold it. Right? The idea is this. You got to live inspired. So the question is it Hashem's miracle that you don't get burned out? You got to work real hard. It's easy to get burned out. Because you don't think, you just go through the motions. But if you're living inspired on a regular basis, each day is a new day to serve God, you don't get burned out. But it's not so easy. Why? Because again, life is hard. Go through a lot of difficulty in life. Many different things. So, we still have to do what we need to do. But it's I'm not going to say it's easy. There are times the person's more inspired, times the person's less inspired. That's very true. But a person has to work very hard not to get in a rut and not just do things by rote. So returning to Judaism, Bali Tshuva, Jews didn't grow up with being religious, or converts, or even Noahides that come out of Christianity or paganism or whatever. So we shouldn't take anything for granted. Totally shouldn't take anything for granted. Because nothing's been handed to us. We've had to fight. We've had to go against family, go against the tide, all these different things, right? So how can a person rest on their laurels? Shouldn't be able to. On a daily basis, shouldn't be able to. But what happens? We get lazy. We get lazy. So I would, there are a lot of things a person can do. One is take a self-accounting every day. Take a self-accounting. Think about what you've done, where you've been, how you spoke, different things. Think about God's awesomeness in the world, like Rabbi Victor Miller would say. You look at an apple. You think about rain. You think about different things, the human body, and the miracles of the human body. When you think of God's awesomeness and that, just that alone, how can a person be the same person? You're going to say, come on, it doesn't do it for me. Okay, person got to think in other ways to be inspired. Right? You think of God's awesomeness and what he does in the world and the miracles, and you're lucky to be alive. Doesn't matter what you've gone through. Person going through tremendous hardship. True. We're not denying that. We've all gone through difficult times. But even so, aren't we glad we're still here? I mean, the alternative is worse. You're not here anymore. You're not able to listen to these videos. You're not able to do Torah and mitzvahs. There's a lot you can't do after that. You gotta be thankful every day. We just take things for granted. So maybe a person should do more acts of loving kindness, more chesed. Right? Appreciate what they have. Help others, whatever it is. Volunteer, I don't know. Gives them a sense of purpose. Person does that, you won't get burned out because you'll be thankful for everything you have. But you got to live that way. Is that easy? No, it's not. For Victor Miller, it was easy. Nothing bothered him. Everything, God is great, happy. Nothing bothers him because he's got 100% belief in what he's doing. 100% faith in what's going on. Because he's full of Torah. You're not lacking anything. But we got to apply it. We got to apply it in the right way. But I got this, I got that. Okay, you got to put things in perspective. But what I'm saying is most people should be absolutely so thankful. They should be so thankful for what they have. Let's compare where they were a year ago, 2 years ago, more. They should be kissing the ground every day. They're not the same person. They should be kissing the ground. They've learned, they've grown, building blocks, all these things. Knowledge is power. Tremendous power over here. Question is how you use it. What you do with it. Right? Well, what's the answer? What's the answer someone's going to give? That's great. But you know what? I'm getting crushed in life. And life is hard. You're right. Life is hard. Challenging. Extremely challenging. For all kinds of things. True. But what does that have to do with anything? I'm still thankful I'm here. And I'm healthy, relatively speaking, this, that. A person's life can be changed upside down in 1 second. And a person's salvation can come in 1 second. We don't know what's going to be from today to tomorrow, King Solomon says. You don't know what's going to be today. For sure you don't know what's going to be tomorrow. I got to live for, I got to be in this world today. I got to function today. I got to work hard today. Tomorrow's another day. Someone points out by the prayer book, yeah, there are many things in the Jewish prayer book that do not apply to non-Jews. 100%. So yeah, non-Jews shouldn't say it. Right? Definitely true. Yeah, let me see if there are any other questions here. Someone asks that they've heard there are more Gentiles who don't know that they're Jewish than Jewish people who know. I don't know if that's true. That there are more Gentiles that don't know they're Jewish. I don't know, like 16 million Jews in the world. Other people don't know they're Jewish. That I would agree. There are people that don't know they're Jewish. To say that the number is higher than the ones that are Jewish, that's hard to say. That I would find very hard to say. Doesn't make sense in many ways that should be the case. I can understand after World War II, and Jews were hidden, given over to non-Jews or whatever. They were never told they were Jewish. Okay, but that's not the same amount as Jews around the world. I mean, that's a little bit much. So Hashem counts secular Jews, and Jews don't know they are Jewish against the nation. First of all, there are two things. There's what they themselves do. They're liable for what they do, whatever level. And whatever they don't know, there are different levels of what someone who doesn't know. Rav Eliashiv, of blessed memory, holds, as long as you know you're a Jew, doesn't matter what that means. You know you were born to a Jewish mother. Right? That's all you know. You don't know very much more than that. He says you're going to be liable for everything. That's the most stringent opinion. All you have to do is know you're Jewish. You're zapped. According to him, nothing's going to help here. That's the most stringent opinion. And there are other opinions. Depends how much they know. It depends on a lot of different factors. So, for a lot of people, now it depends on the sin. If it's something egregious like desecration of Shabbos, doesn't matter what they know or what they don't know. They're toast. If they intermarry, they're toast. Doesn't matter what they know. Right? There's certain things that are egregious. That, if they grew up as a potato farmer in the prairies or wherever, doesn't matter. They're going to get punished severely. Now, most things, they'll get punished like they did by accident. Many things. They're still liable. Again, they're not going to be liable, they're doing it on purpose. They don't know what they're doing. There are certain things they will be liable tremendously for. Okay? Now, so they're going to get punished, however they're going to get punished in that sense. The question is, what about the nation? So, some will make the argument that if we don't stand up and protest and say what they're doing is wrong, we're liable. We ourselves are liable. Now, everyone's told me, made a protest against, all these Russians that came in from the former Soviet Union. And many of them, over 90%, if not more, are all non-Jews. They're all non-Jews. Now, I understand why the government brought them in, and they said explicitly in order to offset us, offset the ultra-Orthodox Jewish population. Secular population not growing, we're taking over. That's what they're afraid of. So they bring in all these non-Jewish Russians. What's the problem? Who allows them to come in? Who stamps their approval? Ministry of Interior. Who's in charge of the Ministry of Interior when this is going on? Ultra-Orthodox Jews. He says they knew what's going on. They didn't do anything to stop it. So he said, I'm making a protest. I'm going to make a protest. So I asked him tongue in cheek, so what do you think the protest is going to do? It's not going to change anything. But my Rebbe said, clear. He said, even if no one's going to listen, I don't want to get upstairs after 120 years and God says, hey, I'm going to make a protest over here. I mean, say that even if nothing's going to happen from it. It's what the Brisker Rav held. Rabbi Chaim Soloveitchik, blessed memory. Others held the same thing. Even if no one's going to answer, but guess what? Even nothing's going to change, someone's going to say it's not okay. And that's the claim of the Holocaust. Some will say, other Orthodox Jews didn't say anything about people desecrating Shabbos. They didn't say anything about all the intermarriage. They make any protest. Now, could that be part of the reason why the Holocaust happened? Maybe. I'm not going to say it's the reason. We don't know. But see, we don't say anything. We just let things go and everything's okay. We're liable. But I didn't do anything. We didn't do anything wrong over here. No, you have to protest. There are times you have to say something. Even if no one's going to listen. And that's not desecration of God's name. Right? There are times you got to say something. It's a when, where. But, some will say that's not what we do. There are, many top rabbinical authorities say, we're not protesting. Not going to listen anyway. Ours is to sit and learn. And the Torah will flow and people will change from that. Okay? There's what to be said for that. Torah has an influence from keeping Shabbos properly here in Israel, has an effect on someone in France. True. Very true. And that I would think is the majority opinion. That most rabbinical authorities say it's not, we're not out here to make protests. Sometimes we might have to, but that's not our job. That's not our job over here. And others will say no. Sometimes, you absolutely have to, and this and that. There's a difference of opinion how to approach it. Definitely a difference of opinion. But again, the majority opinion is that's not the way. That's what most rabbinical authorities would say. It's not the way, it's not going to do anything. Not going to do anything. But they would agree sometimes it might be something you have to do. But let me see other let's see, there are other questions here. Can the Jew in training use a siddur? No. The reason I say no is because, there might be certain things they'd be allowed to say that are universal. They could pick apart and say, okay, this only applies to Jews. This doesn't apply. This doesn't apply to Jews. Right? And then maybe they can take, say this, don't say that, maybe. But there are many things in a prayer book do not apply to non-Jews. So I would say, either get a Noahide prayer book, which does exist in the world, or just always say those things that apply to non-Jews, and don't only apply to Jews. Somebody asks, one second, let me look it up here. Somebody asks, this week's parsha outside of Israel, Leviticus chapter 18:26 says, "The proselyte who lives among you." Right? Let's look it up here. Chapter 18, verse 26. It says, "You shall safeguard my decrees and my judgments," obviously talking to Jews, "not committing any of the abominations, native or the proselyte who lives among you." Right? Usually an Ezra means a non-Jew over here. Right? We're talking about a convert. Right? It's talking about a convert. Right? They're talking about after conversion. Right? There is an idea of a ger toshav. What's a ger toshav? A non-Jew lives amongst the Jewish people in the land of Israel. They keep the Noahide laws. They don't do what do you call it? They don't do idolatry, and all that. There's an obligation for Jewish people to sustain them, etc. But we don't have a ger toshav today because there's no sabbatical year, so there is no status of a ger toshav. right? So you're talking about a non-Jew, right? A non-Jew is going to, keep the Noahide laws. Now, there are times where the Torah will mention a proselyte among you, right? Normally it means a non-Jew. You have to see the context, right? Because there's a discrepancy in the Ten Commandments where it says, by the laws of Shabbos, and the convert among you, right? Now, it's interesting that when a person makes Kiddush and you say, the convert among you, you can say, well, aren't they Jewish? If they're Jewish, then they have to keep Shabbos. So why are you singling out a convert? So there's a whole discussion in the Ramban and others whether it's talking about a convert or not. That's a whole discussion, right? But what's the question? What's the obvious question? If they're already Jewish, so why single them out? Just say a Jew. Don't have to say a convert. That's what I answer on that. Should they know I'd get a bris? No obligation at all. Remember one thing. There are 3 signs that the Torah explicitly says apply to Jews. That God says this is a sign between me and you, i.e. between me and the Jewish people. One of them is Shabbos. One of them is tefillin, phylacteries, whatever you want to call them. And the third is bris milah, circumcision. So that doesn't apply to a non-Jew. Totally doesn't apply to a non-Jew. The fact it applies to a Jew, okay, the Torah says explicitly. So every number of years, there's a whole discussion among doctors, right? Taking off the foreskin, is it, keep this clean. Is it good against cancer? Prostate cancer, is it not good? Whatever. And you know what? It doesn't matter. That's the obligation. Obligation is you take it off. Whether it's proven or not proven, it's good against cancer. The whole purpose of it is to take it off. Right? Now, there are a lot deeper things which I don't want to go into, but it doesn't apply over here. It doesn't apply to a non-Jew. And there are things that if it doesn't affect, a non-Jew, that it would, like a Jew, then a non-Jew is not going to do it, like by the laws of kashrus. Like we mentioned many times in Leviticus chapter 8, chapter 11. It talks about the laws of, which animals you're allowed to eat, not allowed to eat. Right? The Kli Yakar there says, spoke about it many times. Kli Yakar says, doesn't affect a non-Jew over here. Totally doesn't affect a non-Jew. Why? Non-Jew can eat whatever they want. It doesn't affect their soul. By a Jew, it affects them, dulls the soul. Right? That's why, first thing, secular Jews becoming religious, tell them to keep kosher. Get all that garbage out of their system. Totally get their garbage out of the system. That affects them. By a non-Jew, doesn't affect them. They can eat whatever. Forget about, I don't know, the bats and Wuhan, whatever. Right? But a non-Jew can eat all kinds of creepy things, this and that. Never affect them. Won't affect their soul. A Jew, it will. Right? So the Kli Yakar asked, so why would a non-Jew do it? No benefit. There's no benefit. But I'm going to do it and I'll get extra merit. There's no benefit over here. So no benefit, they won't do it. So bris milah, same thing. No obligation, none. If they want to do it, again, obligation, certainly not. Certainly not. So that wasn't the question. The question is, should I know I get a bris? I would say no. Doesn't apply to them. How should Noahide pray? There's a Noahide Nations has a prayer book. Noahide prayer book. I would say get that. Does Noahide have an obligation to pray? They should pray. Give thanks to God. What can they say? They can say Psalms. They can say anything Tanakh. Different things. Maybe even some blessings they could say that we say. Thank God for, opening my eyes, or making me a slave. That could apply. Right? Different things. But anyway, that's what I would say on that. Yeah. Let me see other questions here. Someone asked about trying to be modest, I'll look at women, right? guy asking a question. How do you deal with the fact that offends people when you don't shake their hands? Right. Someone gave me advice many years ago. It's good advice. Even though some people still might get offended. Right. One advice is someone wants to shake your hand, put your hands behind your back and you bow. Kind of like the Japanese do a little bit. Sort of like a half bow. You show respect, but you have your hands behind your back. Now, someone will say, come on, it doesn't really work. Whatever. That's one thing. Another thing a person can do to break the ice is to say, I only shake hands with ugly women. So that'll sort of break the ice a little bit. Or you can just explain, listen, my religious practice, I'm not a shaker. Right? I'm not a shaker, whatever. People are going to get offended. What are you going to do? Is there any way to stop it? I don't know if there's any way to stop it. I remember I had a relative that, I wasn't allowed to hug and got all kinds of flack for that. Someone made some really nasty comments. This person already well in their 70s. It's like, come on, what do you think? This, that. Okay, I took my lumps. What can I do? Torah says otherwise. Many rabbinical authorities hold, it might be something you have to give up your life for over here, rather than shake someone's hand. That's how severe it is. Other people just poo-poo and say, what are you, square? Like, come on. Pretty, like I said, I took a lot of lumps over the years, for this. But, I had somebody tried to joke with him about it, different things, and it never went. It never went. I got hammered. That's an understatement. I got hammered. Okay, what am I going to do? I'd rather look like a fool in this world than look like a fool in the next one. Don't let them make fun, let them scoff, let them this. I joked about it. I tried this, I tried that. And this person, well, if you wouldn't do this, I'll never speak to you. That's a little bit fanatical. It's like, what? You won't shake my hand? You won't give me a hug? You won't give me a hug? It's a cousin. Whatever. It was a cousin. So I'm forbidden. It's forbidden. Even if it's not an intimate thing, it doesn't matter. And they're like, wow, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't hug me. Why should I speak to you? That's a little bit fanatical. Where's your open-mindedness? You're so much more open-minded than me, which is true. I'm not going to disagree with that. So you're so much more open-minded, but look what you just said. First of all, you're belittling me. That's one thing. Right? But now you're saying, oh, if you wouldn't do this, I wouldn't even speak to you. Right? That's beneath me to speak to you because you wouldn't do that. Like, are you for real? So that means they show no respect. Okay? So you won't speak to me. My loss. My loss. Well, what exactly am I losing out here? I don't know, but my loss, fine. Again, I tried to joke about it this way, a different way. That was the response I got. So did I come out smelling like a rose? No. I got egg in my face. Okay. What am I going to do? At that point, I was already strong enough in my beliefs and everything. Now, whatever, I just blew it up. Okay. Today wouldn't even be an issue. You want to say that? I got a lot more I could say, but okay. You got free choice. That's what you want to do. Fine. That means that I'm going to go crawl up in a hole and say, woe to me. I can't believe they said that. And family's everything. Come on. Forget it. Personal whack job. Spiritual whack job. My language. Okay. Totally misguided. Totally misguided. I could think about it and say, listen, a person could feel bad. They really put you down. That's pretty malicious. I know where it comes from. Doesn't matter. It's, it doesn't make you feel too good. By hearing, oh, come on, it's so square, it's this. And, come on, this is your great so-and-so, whatever. What, I can't hug them. Like, come on. I heard what they said. heard exactly what I just, they're like, come on, be serious. Come on, get over it. Like, come on, like, yeah, she's 82 years old. What do you think's going to happen? Am I going to win that argument? No. Am I going to waste my time thinking about it? No. I'm going to waste my time for. Got plenty of other things to waste my time thinking about. Someone wants to think, oh, I'm so square, and I'm so, okay, think what you want. You ignoramus. Think what you want. I'm not, I don't have an obligation to answer that. Not to mention it was in front of a lot of people. A lot of other people there, but okay. I'm gonna sit there and I could have said something. Easily could have said something. You always think of the great things to say after the fact. But what am I gonna do? Well, it was a nice place where I was anyway. So I was in a mourner's house. It wasn't like I'm gonna start a fight with somebody. Obviously someone I hadn't seen in many years, and that's what they come up with. So I move on. I'm not, wasted energy. Total waste of energy. Not using their name. Also, I guess, I mentioned before, like in the workplace, I know somebody who, or forget the workplace, but they won't call a guy by his first name. Even if it's a good friend of their, even, if they're a good friend of the person's wife, they'll say Rabbi so-and-so or Mr. So-and-so. They'll use the last name because they don't want to use first name basis. Someone will say, well, that's offensive. Okay. And if they say, listen, if you're not going to call me by my first name, don't say anything. Now, if you have to work with them, okay, you got to set up other boundaries. Someone could get that adamant, they won't respect it. Could happen. So, if someone were to say, either call me by first name or never speak to me, and you have to really deal with them, then call them by their first name. You might not have a choice, but just, every time have in mind what you're doing, just so you don't become accustomed to doing it. Let me see. Other questions here. Can I name streams within people who are Litvox? Yeah, there are ultra-Orthodox, Yeshivish, modern Orthodox. Yeah, you got Briskers that, they learn the same way that they did in Brisk, certain customs, etc. You got modern Orthodox, you got, there's even a concept, some people will say, they'll call them Haredi lights, ultra-Orthodox light. That means, you're chilled a little bit. It doesn't mean you're not religious, you're, I don't know. I don't even know how to define it. It's like, you're not as uptight, so to speak. Now, what does that mean? That means you don't do my macaroni, right? You don't wash your hands after eating bread, before you say grace after meal. I don't know. That's how some people look at it. It's like, they're not as stringent maybe on certain things, but they're Orthodox. They're not modern. Right. Then you got someone who's Chardal, right? It's called Haredi religious Dati Lumi. Right. So that means they're more Zionistic, but they're Orthodox. So they're more, I would say they're more modern, right? In many ways. Some dress black and white, many don't, right? Because they identify more with the religious Zionist modern Orthodox community. Right. So you have them as well. And I guess I would put them in the modern Orthodox community. They're probably, just a question of dress. So that doesn't differentiate between here and outside of Israel. They're just, they're probably more modern Orthodox, and there's a question of dress, really. I don't think it's, but they do identify being Haredi, being ultra-Orthodox, right? So what about religious Zionism? I don't know. Takes them out of that category being religious Zionist to a certain extent, I guess, by other philosophical outlooks that they might have. That's, the importance of learning Torah and how they view the secular world, different things. That could be. That very well could be. Somebody asks, in the Torah, why is convert still called the convert after conversion? If they're supposed to be considered a native born. Yeah, that's, that's an issue. That's an issue. The reason, the idea is, once a person's converted, let's remember, they're not exactly like born-bred Jews, because there are only certain people they're allowed to marry. Right? Can't marry a Cohen. Woman can't marry a Cohen. So there are certain things, certain status that they have, that their soul in a certain way is blemished. Why? Because they grew up as a non-Jew. It's not their fault. Totally not their fault. Right? But the reality is that they have to go through conversion. So does that mean 100% they're looked at like a Jew? They should be, but again, there are certain things they can't do. Certain things they're not allowed to do. Give an example, another example. A non-Jew who converts, are they allowed to be a rabbinic court judge? So I've spoken about this before also. And they're not allowed to have a position of power, because they learned it out from the verse about a king. Right? And it says about a king, he has to be from among his people. Is a convert among his people? Technically, yes, but they came from the outside. King has to be someone on the inside. So there is a clarification. There is a clarification. A convert can judge other converts. And if the litigants agree that they want him to be a judge and he's a Torah giant, they're allowed to. Right? So for many things, they're allowed to. For certain things, maybe they shouldn't. Like, let's say being a rabbi of a synagogue, it's a whole discussion. Or being the head of a yeshiva, there's a discussion. So it's a technicality. It's a technicality based on where they came from. Right? Because the Torah says you want to have a position of power like a king, you got to be born a Jew. You got to be born a Jew. That's what the Torah says. You want to call it discrimination? You call it what you want. That's what the Torah says. So the commentaries say, okay, so what about a convert? Is he among your people? Yes, he is. But there's always a but. There's a but over here. He wasn't born into it, so there's certain limitations. 99% of things they can do, there are certain limitations. So that being the case, there is a distinction. Now, if those limitations don't apply and they say, oh, convert, this, that, and the other thing, that's 100% discrimination. That's wrong. That 100% is wrong. But there are certain limitations. That would be my answer to that. Someone asks about one of those big fuzzy hats. What do you call it? You call it a strimal, right? A fedora hat, right? It's got the, how many minks? How many minks does it take? Yeah, that'd be funny on porn with this one. How many minks does it take to make a strimal? I don't know. It's a good question. That's what they wore in Poland and in Russia. That was the custom of certain Hasidic groups, right? To wear it. What does it signify? I don't know. It's the dress code. That's the dress code that they had. So there are some Hasidic groups that wear it. What's the deeper meaning? I don't know. I don't know, but it's the custom how they dress. And you see by Hasidim, different groups wear different things. The Hasidim by Told Zara. They wear these gold kaftans. We'll call them, they look like zebras, right? In many ways. That's what it is. It's like some, on Shabbos it's gold, during the week it's like black and white, right? So to speak. They call them zebras. I don't know. It's kind of a funny thing. But okay, that's the way, that's the way their ancestors dress, and that's the way they dress. Does it mean anything more than that? I don't know if it's more significant than that. It's a way of dress. Everybody, by the way, Chazon Ish of Avram Shai Karla, the blessed memory, said that, in Europe, everyone wore long coats. Hasidic coats, frocks, whatever, they wore long coats. And modern day, that changed. That changed. But I remember my oldest daughter got married. So I told my Rebbe, so listen, I have to go get a suit. So, at least new suit anyway. So I asked him, should it be long or short? Right? I.e. long, let's say like a frock, like, heads of yeshivas would wear, rabbinic scholars would wear, or serious rabbinic scholars, let's say. So, even though dress, I wouldn't say means so much today, but okay. So he told me straight out, Chazon Ish said everyone should wear long. So he said you should wear long, you want to look distinguished. So that's what I wear on Shabbos, festivals, go to weddings. Makes me look distinguished. But, in any case, that might be a little bit different because that's like showing you're something. You got this knowledge or whatever. Obviously, most people don't wear it, even if they have tremendous knowledge. They're afraid to put it on because, gaiva, being conceited, whatever. But he said that's what the Chazon Ish said. Chazon Ish said everyone should wear long. Right? So you got, your Yerushalmis, all, they all wear long coats. I'm not saying they wear a frock. Frock might be something different. Right? But, maybe from, more modesty also. But, today in the outer Orthodox community, unless you're Hasidic or Yerushalmi, then, most people wear a short coat. Right? Whether, black pinstripe or gray, with gray pins, whatever it is. Right? So most people wear short during the week and also on Shabbos. They wear maybe a nicer suit on Shabbos. Or someone will wear, let's say, something special on Shabbos. That's what I'd say on that. Let me see. There are any other questions here? 1 second. Someone asked, how did Moshe Rabbeinu get married to Sipporah? They say she converted. They said she went through some level of conversion. You're right. Couldn't have married her. She, how could she marry someone who's not Jewish? So, Moshe Rabbeinu before Torah was given also considered, a non-Jew. Or the question is, what was Moshe Rabbeinu and the patriarchs? Were they Noahides? Were they Jews? Were they considered Jews before the Torah was given? Right? But when it came to Mount Sinai, everyone was considered a convert. So that wouldn't have been a problem. And if he was a non-Jew before, she didn't have to convert. Right? But when it came to Mount Sinai, everyone of the Jewish people, it was like a whole conversion, one big thing. It was like they all converted. So, he'd be allowed to marry her. King Solomon had thousands of children. Seems like it. Definitely seems like it. Right? Married a lot of women, but who was his main child considered? That Bathsheba, let's say better. Bathsheba married David. David had many wives. Many, many wives. But the main child he had was through her. Right? That's what she prayed for. That she shouldn't be like all the other wives. Her child should have, should be, what did she want? She wanted wisdom. She wanted morality, for her child. And God saw what she wanted and gave her also kingship. Because here, the other kids, what do they want? They want power. You see his other sons try to overthrow him, Avshalom, Adoniyahu, right? They're trying to overthrow him. So she prayed, if she has a son, he should be known, for knowledge. But not only was he known for knowledge, he was the smartest of all men. And not only that, he got the kingship. She got that as a bonus. God gave that as a bonus. I just actually saw this. I saw it brought down. I forget exactly where I saw it brought down. I just saw it recently. Did he have 1,000 children? Yeah. People think, oh, look, he married all these women. Yeah, he wanted to draw all the nations together. Right? It wasn't just, you think, oh, it's wild man over here, God forbid. Some people look at it and say, oh, that's the way it sounds. Person got to be careful here. You got to be careful how you look at Tanakh. Tanakh is not something that's so easy to learn. That's why only, kids learn at the very beginning. They don't really learn Tanakh afterwards because a lot of contradictions, seemingly contradictions between the Tanakh and the Torah, right, which have to be answered up for. but it's very deep, extremely deep. And, it's ironic. The Christians very good at misrepresenting and lying and all that, what they do, and turn the Torah into a pretzel, because they don't know what they're doing. They don't have oral law, so they look at certain things, and say, oh, they manipulate, they change the meaning. But, it's like, if you look at what they're talking about and you look at the sources, they're picking like some of the most difficult sources in all of Tanakh and trying to give their spin on it. And a lot of it, what they misrepresent, a lot of it has to do with context, and they take it totally out of context. I have a couple of videos I did on Tanakh Talk. I had a Freemason that sent me all kinds of, show why angels have free will, right? They showed me a whole bunch of verses. I took a few of them, took like 4 or 5 of them. I looked them up. Not world's greatest expert in Tanakh, not claiming to be. I looked it up, and 99% of the answers all in context. Yeah, I looked at the commentaries, see what they said, but 99% was in context, right? One of the easiest ones, and I didn't bring this up, but what do the Christians bring up about the new covenant, right? Jeremiah chapter 30. How can there be a new covenant in general? You can't go against what Moshe Rabbeinu says. You can't contradict what Moshe Rabbeinu says. So why call it a new covenant? Okay, that's a good question. But if you read the beginning of the chapter, Jeremiah is chastising Jewish people about what? That they go against the old covenant. So he wants them to renew the old covenant, not make a new covenant. He can't make a new covenant. That goes against everything the Torah stands for. Can't add or subtract from the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu himself said that. And God says, don't go against anything Moshe says. So how can you make a new covenant? You can't. So what does it mean? Look at the context. That's the easiest. Because the context says go back to the old covenant. So why call it a new covenant? Because you're connected to the old one. You're not making it a brand new thing. You're reconnecting to the old one. Now, it could be it said a new covenant for the sole reason to make people make a mistake. Also, people can make that mistake, right? But if you look at the context of the beginning, how can you say that? I'm just saying what the words say. I'm not bringing in oral law here. I don't need oral law. That's exactly what he's chastising them for. So if that's true, you're going to say it's a new covenant. It can't be new. How can it be new? It can't be. So what's it talking about? It's talking about reconnecting to the old covenant. That's the context. So 99% are answered. Answered by that. Oh, they want to turn Torah into a pretzel. Do what you want, but look at the context. Look at the context. These other things this Freemason was saying about these other verses, saying that angels have free will. I would have had to been, stoned, drunk, plastered to come up with such crazy explanations. Oh, this is what it means. Are you serious? It says this. Yeah. And this is what I read. Really? You got a screw loose. Doesn't say that. Not my wildest dreams when I say it says that. Oh, but you want to make this claim, make me look bad? Okay. That's not what it says. And now, again, I went through a whole bunch of these verses. Right? You look up that video on Tanakh Talk, the angels have free will. And I went through a bunch of those verses. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. I'm not saying you have to be well versed in Tanakh to answer. A lot of it is common sense. But you have to see what it's talking about. It's confusing. Because the prophets change from different topics, different things. You have to see what they're talking about. But there are many things that are obvious in context. So why don't they see it? Why don't they see it? Very simple. They have an agenda. They have an agenda. You see what you want to see. You don't see what you don't want to see. Yeah, people have selective hearing. I get that all the time. You say something, people say, oh, this, that. I said, that's not what I said. So give me an answer. I don't have to answer you. Like talking to a brick. You want to talk to a brick? Okay. I don't enjoy talking to a brick, in general. So you want to take what I said out of context? Seeing people do it to other people. It's polite, take a thing out. Person said this. But they didn't see what the context was. Now, it could be. Maybe the person shouldn't have said what they said and what they spoke about. Okay. But, you take someone out of context, you splice them. Yeah, that's, that's a problem. You got to see what they said before, what they said after, what the context is. And then if they really said what they said, okay? But you don't take one statement out of you take a lecture of an hour and a half, you take one statement and they didn't hear anything before and after, that's taken out of context. Totally taken out of context. People want to do that to make people look bad. That obviously forbidden. Any other questions? Someone asked, was Lilith Adam's first wife? No. So was she? Yeah, it's not going to get into it. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, back on track. 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Coffman or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, Rabbi Chaim Coffman at gmail.com. RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN at gmail.com. Wish you having a good beginning of the day.